Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Recently, just a couple of days back, a major event happened, and while media did report it, I did not see much of concern on the part of the politicians, leaders of the free world. Why? Why this paralysis of thought? This was, as a matter of fact, a shattering news that Russia had decided to leave OST, and leaving OST, practically abrogating it, is a major event because it brings the world closer to a war. OST stands for Open Skies Treaty. This is one treaty which is supposed to be a key arm control agreement. So when one major country leaves it, after having violated it, is a matter of concern. In November, 3 months back, the USA left OSD after accusing Russia of violating the pact. Of course, as usual, Russia denied the allegation. Moscow blamed Washington for its decision of leaving the OSD and said that if USA is not there, then I'm not going to be there. So I'm leaving it. While it was envisaged, this treaty was envisaged, thought of as a key arm control agreement. For the last 10 years, people in Washington have been accusing Russia of non compliance with the OSD protocols. They have been accusing Russia, blaming Moscow for obstructing surveillance flights on the territory, while misusing its mission for gathering key tactical data. And as a matter of fact, the growing mistrust among the global powers is going to be such a situation, psychological war takes place. So on Friday, when Russia announced that it was leaving OSD, an agreement which was signed by 30 countries, and basically the agreement says that these countries can fly unarmed recce flights on the parts of the other country. So that's why Russia has been flying on the Arctic pretty often, and that too without informing. The first condition was that they'll fly with information that we are coming. So in November, USA said Russia is not doing it. But most of the people, are they aware of what OSD is? No. Many times the major events take place and the public is not aware. The result is that the politicians take undue advantage. This open skies treaty was first proposed way back in 1955 by President Eisenhower. Cold wars were at a height. So President Eisenhower said that let's have a treaty so that we can be open and nothing is hidden from our allies as well as from our enemies. As an army general and a strategist, he thought that if the enemy knows how strong you are, he will think twice before attacking you. It's a variation of if you want peace, be prepared for war. And it's not only to be prepared, but to show that you are prepared. So This treaty, eventually from 55 to 92, was discussed threadbare at all fora, bilaterally, multilaterally, United Nations tables, out of United Nations tables, on the getaways for the political leaders, and ultimately, NATO members and the Warsaw Pact members signed the treaty. And it went into effect in 2002. 35 countries signed it, including USA and Russia. And one other member, Kyrgyzstan, signed it but did not ratify. India did not sign. The purpose was to build confidence among members, as I said, through mutual openness, thus reducing the possibility of accidental war. You see, when your nuclear buttons are ready to be pressed, even a small misinformation can cause a holocaust. So, people thought at least the war should not be by accident. So, under the treaty, a member state can spy on any part of the host nation. And I'm using the word spy very consciously, but it's with the letter's consent. And the purpose is that you send your spy aircraft, surveillance aircraft, but inform the host country, well, look here, we are going to send our countries. And if you remember in 50, USA had sent this B-2 fighter, and it was Gary Powers was flying it, and Russia had brought it down. So that sort of a thing sought to be avoided. And under this treaty, a country can undertake aerial imaging of the host country, but it has to give 72 hours before flying. And after that, 24 hours before flying, it has to give a flight plan. So this was the pre-satellite area. You remember a few days back, I put up satellite pictures how China has built a complete village in Arunachal Pradesh. This is a variation of that, but then this was before that. And satellite picture may not be available to everybody, and every country doesn't have that. So information gathered, such as the troop movements, military exercises, missile deployments, had to be shared to the all member states. Only approved imaging equipment is permitted on the surveillance flights, and the official from the home country can board on that. So why did USA leave then OST? That's the important thing. It was, as a matter of fact, a major movement towards mutual trust. But Russia was not complying with it. Whenever request was made to overfly, Russia would refuse it on one pretext or the other. But it was using its own mission for gathering tactical data. Mr. Singh Jaspal has sent a command. Thanks for explaining OST, which many may not be knowing. I thank you very much, Mr. Jaspal. I fully appreciate it and I understand. People are not aware of these fine nuances, which are very important. Now, coming back to the major issue, Russia was playing a double game. It would send its aircraft on the surveillance flight, as I told you about the Arctic. It has been sending, on an average, 3 flights per month, overflying Arctic, Canadian airspace, Denmark airspace, and that too without giving any information. And not only that, it has been throwing and planting its Russian flag even on the seabed, which is absolutely against the treaty. So, in last May, President Trump was very unhappy. And he was more annoyed that in the New Jersey state, his golf course was being spied on. Russia ran its flights, the recce flight, the reconnaissance flights, would fly over its Gulf coast repeatedly. 3 years passed, and in May 2020, he said that Russia has been very flagrantly violating the treaty and we are leaving it. If one country leaves it, it would have given Russia a moral privilege. Look here, I am honest, but this is playing, USA is playing a bully. But Russia said, if USA leave, why should I be left behind? It was a contentious issue because it was reluctant to allow flights over Kaliningrad. Now, Kaliningrad is an enclave in Eastern Europe. It's a site between NATO ally Lithuania and Poland. So, this small enclave, Russia is protecting and doesn't allow any flight by NATO countries, by USA, or by other countries. And Poland and Lithuania are very much afraid that this might be a base for destabilizing these countries and might be an arms outlet to carry out insurrections, revolutions in these countries. So it always refused it. And Russia defended its position by saying that it was legitimate under treaty rules and said, look here, we have been flying on Alaska without giving, sorry, on Arctic without giving information, but we never flew over Alaska because government of USA does not permit us to fly over Alaska. So after USA left OST, Russia wanted assurance from NATO allies, other countries who had not left OST, that they would not transfer data collected by the flights from Russia to Washington. That is not possible because NATO was basically an agreement initiated by USA as a bulwark against Russia. So if those countries do not give the data to USA, it's a violation of the NATO basic principle. And not only that, USA is carrying a burden of almost 70% of the NATO budget. So USA already was prompting them to spend more and just said, okay, you don't want to give me data, I don't care. So no money. And NATO would have met the fate of Warsaw Pact. So naturally, when the NATO countries did not agree to it, Russia left the treaty. Now, what's the significance of the treaty? That's the most important thing. And what would happen when Russia leaves it? As I said, this treaty was signed in 92, and it was much before advanced satellite imaging technology came into being. Now, intelligence is gathered, but it's gathered through satellite imaging technology. I've given you two examples just now, building of the new roads by China and the building of the complete village, setting up a complete village in Arunachal Pradesh. But there's one thing, surveillance aircraft provide key information that cannot be gathered by satellite sensors. How can a satellite gather thermal imaging data? That's not possible because of the distance involved and the obstructions in the passage. So the thermal imaging data has to be collected at a comparatively lower level. If it's more than, they say, 30 kilometers above, then you cannot have the thermal imaging. Maybe tomorrow they develop the tech capability of that, but today they don't have. Then, if you notice, since 2002, Washington has flown more than 200 surveillance missions on Russia and its ally Belarus. And OSC data gathered during 2014 Russia Ukraine conflict was extremely helpful to defeat Russia. Till now, more than 1,500 flights had been conducted under the agreement. Now, when Russia and America both are out, what would happen? Immediate consequence of this would be that INF treaty would become futile, useless, dead. Now you must be thinking, what is this new animal called INF? INF is a significant armed control accord. This is intermediate range nuclear force treaty. And that is already failed. So two treaties which were controlling arm race are out. OST is out and INF is out. INF was signed in 1987 and both powers agreed to destroy the category of lethal missile systems from their stocks so that the nuclear arm race is reduced. And now there is a cause of worry. There was a meeting a couple of days back where heads of the intelligence and the nuclear powers of three countries met, and they were worried because there is a another agreement which is much more important. That's the New START agreement. New START agreement was an agreement to control the nuclear powers, and it's supposed to expire on February 5, 2021. So next month, February 5, this agreement would be over. And once this agreement is over, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, practically all countries will be free to build as many nuclear plants, as many nuclear weapons as they want. Not only that, they don't have to inform even the nuclear club, now which is being done now. So what happens on February 6th? That's a curious thing. President Joe Biden said that he wants to continue the treaty and he'd like to renew it. But he ignored one thing which Trump had said. Trump had said that this agreement, INF, and the New START agreement have no meaning unless China is a part of it. Now, China is a bigger power today militarily than Russia is. So Biden and NATO say, no, we are happy with Russia signing it. And as a matter of fact, Germany and France want China to sign. But Biden says, no, let's not ask China to bother about it. Let's continue the agreement. Now, having an agreement without China is having Hamlet without the Prince of Denmark. The principal actor today in the global battlefield is not Russia, but it's China. So Biden's willingness, however, that is that Russia would not be willing to come in. Also guilt unless China is there. And then Russia has also said that why not India as well? Because India is equally important. And my fear is that today is 25th of January. So it's a matter of 10 days. Would Biden administration be capable enough to finalize the agreement with Russia, China, and other parts of the world so that the danger of the unrestricted nuclear proliferation is not there after February 5? February 5 is a crucial date. Open Skies Treaty is off. That's a major thing. INF treaty is off. Two treaties have gone. The third one is hanging with a fine thread and its fate is undecided. So the implication of dangers and helping the world are very clear. It is up to the politicians and the leaders to take necessary steps. Would they have imagination? Would they have initiative? Would they have capability to undertake necessary action? Let's wait and watch. But let me tell you, the biggest problem I find with these people is that they don't take people into confidence. All these three treaties I've talked about today have been so hidden from the public eye that the people mostly were not even aware what's happening. And it's those people, innocent people, who are kept in the dark are the people who ultimately suffer. And that's the tragedy of this world. That a few oligarchs, a few politically manipulative leaders decide the fate of the world without taking the world into confidence. Is this democracy? Is this human rights? Is it, we say, right to information and freedom? So, where is my freedom to have the information? And why haven't the leaders released this information? But are the MPs listening or are the community leaders listening? It's time they do, because if they do not, then they are primarily responsible for letting these big national leaders run amok and destroy the world. Thank you.